What's up, y'all? It's Matthew and Taylor with Kingsmen Homes, and today we're going to be talking about the benefits of induction cooktops. But while we get started, before we get into the details, why don't you start to get this pot to boil?
Sure thing. Let's get it cranked up. Got it all the way to 9.
All right, so it's got that set to 9. We have an empty, cool pot of water on this cooktop. So what the technology is of induction and how they work, they actually heat through magnetic fields, and that magnetic field then excites the iron molecules within the cookware itself. And when that iron molecule gets excited, it vibrates, which then creates friction, and then in turn makes heat.
You can even hear those molecules heating up. That's
Yeah.
really neat. But with the iron excited molecules, that does mean that you have to have iron in your cookware, right? So there's definitely specific materials that you can and can't use with induction cooktops. Mainly if you stick with stainless steel or cast iron, even enameled cast iron, those are all usually compatible with induction cooktops. But if you're questioning if the cookware you have currently is compatible or anything like that, you can do a quick magnet test at the bottom of the pots or pans, and that'll tell you what you need to know.
There you have it. If it's magnetic, then it has iron in it, and then it can be used with induction cooktop. So induction cooking is actually a targeted process, whereas gas is not a targeted process. Whenever you're cooking with gas, only about 30% of that heat being burned from that gas is actually going into the cookware itself. With induction, you actually get like roughly 90% of the heat being created from the induction process going into the cookware. Where the rest of that heat's going in the gas process is to the surrounding air around it. So with induction, you can actually put your hand like right all around it while it's running, and you feel little to no heat, right? Yeah, exactly. Whereas if you try to do this with traditional gas cooking,
Wouldn't go too well.
Yeah, you'd be paying the price for it.
Yeah, and on that too, when you're cooking dinner against a gas stove top, you're definitely feeling all that heat coming off of there. Makes it a little bit uncomfortable to cook dinner sometimes if you have especially multiple pots and pans going, but with this one and that direct heat, that also means we're going to be boiling a pot of water a lot quicker.
Yeah, so if a gas cooktop, roughly 30% of the heat is used into the cookware, and you get about 90% of the heat from induction going into the cookware, so it's almost like just over 2 times more efficient and faster than traditional gas cooking. In addition, you get that added benefit of like not all the heat coming off of it.
You can even see like the bubbles in here right now. We're already starting to simmer, which is crazy. I don't even know that we're maybe a minute into since we turned it on.
And being more efficient is just one bonus of induction cooking. Everybody knows that whenever you burn fuel, it puts off a lot of bad, nasty stuff. Yet for some reason, we seem to forget that whenever we bring fuel into the house in the form of a cooktop. So with open gas combustion, you got to think about all that stuff being exhausted from that burning fuel into your house, actually. So whenever you have an open heat source, like a traditional gas cooktop, ventilation is extremely critical. So, yeah.
Turn that one, even though it's not as critical here.
Yeah, right? Since we're already boiling. So with a gas cooktop, ventilation is extremely critical because of all those pollutants that are coming off of that gas being burned in that combustion process. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's especially important to consider when you're looking at and when we're building healthy homes like we are. You don't have a lot of places for those pollutants to go if you were cooking with a gas stovetop, so then you would definitely need to make sure you're having the proper ventilation for that, whereas with the induction, not as critical.
Yeah, so to really truly properly ventilate a gas cooktop, you need like a really robust vent hood that's pulling like 1,000 plus CFM, and then you have to bring in a bunch of unfiltered makeup air to keep your house in balance, especially if you have a well-built tight home.
We're boiling.
Yeah, especially if you have a well-built tight home like this one. But with induction, we're less concerned about the pollutants that are coming off the cooking itself. It's more so about like just removing moisture through this vent. So we can use a lot less powerful of a vent hood. And we're not really worried about harming ourselves through cooking in the process.
Yeah, and technology has come a long way on induction cooktops as well. When you think about like electric stovetops, I know a big complaint there, and complaint for me personally on electric cooktops is that really inconsistent with the heating. Whether you're trying to dial up the heat or lower it down, it takes a long time to go either direction. And why I was a gas cooktop fan for so long is because you had a lot more precise heating availability.
Control, yeah.
Precise temperature control, thank you. So you can like really easily, we're in a boiling pot of water right now, but you know, turn that down and that's immediately.
Nice low simmer.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not your grandma's electric cooktop where it's essentially just like on and off. So with induction, you can really moderate that up and down as needed with really precise temperature control versus, you know, what you think of traditionally with an electric cooktop, because it's essentially just acting as like on and off. There's no, you can't like make electricity flow less or more very well with a traditional electric cooktop. Induction is also more comfortable to cook around, but it's also safer. Like if you have little ones running around and you have a pot on the stove, they wouldn't want to touch this pot necessarily, but if they touch any of the burners or anywhere around it.
Even I'm getting pretty close right here, and like I can still hold my fingertips right there, and it's warm, but it's not anything that's gonna scald me or burn me, right?
Yeah, that's correct. It's significantly safer. So like if we were to move this pot out of the way, so there's some moisture on here in the glass itself, but the cooktop would still be a little bit warm, but you can touch it. You couldn't do this with a gas cooktop because that metal on there would be red hot. And then not to mention this particular model notices that the pot's been moved, so it's no longer heating until you move it back on there. Then it detects it.
Because this burner has stayed on the whole
time.
Burner has stayed on the whole time. And when you move the pot out of the way too, say you're done cooking, you've started, you know, washing down your pots and pans, but it still reads that the surface is hot. So there's still that warning there that like, hey, this is a warm surface, but, it's turning off.
But it's not going to burn you.
Right.
And you may have, some people may have experienced this where your spouse, your child has cooked something, they may have had it on low settings, so it wasn't like very obvious that it was burning, taking it off, made dinner, went to bed, and then you woke up the next day and you came and you looked at the cooktop, and sure enough, there's just an open flame burning all day.
Do you know that from experience?
Yeah, that may
guilty,
be from personal experience. But with this particular model of cooktop, if it doesn't detect anything on the cooking surface itself, after a while, it'll actually just time out.
I think it has basically timed out at this point.
Yeah, it's timed out all the other ones, so it's still indicating that this one's hot.
Yep.
One of the downsides of induction cooking is that it is slightly more expensive than your traditional gas cooktop setup.
In the grand scheme of a home build though, how much more are we talking? Like $5,000?
Yeah, so let's say like this, if this exact model, same 36-inch setup, and a gas configuration is roughly like $2,000, whereas this induction one is like $3,000. Yeah.
So I mean, yes, it's an upgrade.
Yes,
but in the grand scheme of a total home build, it could be something where you can make room for a $1,000 upgrade potentially.
Yeah. And then the other caveat that with induction cooktop is you need a less robust ventilation system. So you don't have to bring in, you know, a ginormous vent hood that's removing 1,000 CFM or have all these other special features with the AC side of bringing in makeup air. So it kind of almost is a wash, maybe just a slightly more increase in cost if done properly. That's the problem with gas most of the time, is it's not done properly.
And then maybe playing a little bit of devil's advocate too. The other downside to say about the induction cooktops is going to be that it runs off of electricity. So in the event of a power outage, if you don't have a generator, you're going to be without any sort of cooktop. But I mean, that's kind of the same thing as your AC system too.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
So if you lose power in the summertime, it's going to get hot. You're not going to be necessarily worried about running your cooktop because you're going to be super uncomfortable in your house regardless. So a backup power source of some sort, whether it be solar or a generator, is definitely something you want to keep in mind. I mean, that should honestly be something you should keep in mind regardless of the cooktop situation.
Well, and if you don't, I know in Texas a lot of us do now have whole home generators, but do you think even not necessarily a whole home generator, but like one of the smaller generators that like portable ones, do you think you could run your induction off of that?
Yeah, if you were savvy enough to load manage in your breaker panel with a smaller generator and you had the hookups to do it, you absolutely could.
There you go.
So that definitely is one thing that you can keep in mind, but a whole home generator is a good practice regardless.
Agreed.
So the main driving factor for any decision-making process in our home builds is a healthier home for you and your family. And I would say that induction cooktops fit perfectly in line with that mission. And not to mention that they're not bad looking either
No,
at that.
definitely not. I would be more than happy to have this in my home. It definitely wouldn't be an eyesore. And it's also got a lot of other really great functions that we didn't necessarily talk about specifically. You know, obviously induction and the cooktop on top here, but it's got a lot of really neat settings for the oven as well.
Yeah, not to mention easy cleanup.
Oh yeah, that big one right there. You just wipe it down and you're
That's
good to
it. No picking up grates or anything.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you for tuning in. If you have any questions, please visit us at kingsmanhomes.com. Follow us on Instagram, Kingsman Homes LLC, and we'll see you
in the
next
next
time.
one.